So one of the easiest things that you can make in the Instant Pot is chickpeas. And then the chickpeas can be made into other things, hummus, fried chickpeas, those are really good. Chickpeas, when you buy them from the can, you know, from the grocery store, they're okay. But I found that they taste a lot better when you make them yourself. So this is 1 pound of chickpeas right here. And this is a pound of chickpeas that have been cooked in the Instant Pot. So they're between double and triple the volume. So to make them, it couldn't be simpler. You take the lid off of your Instant Pot. There's 2 ways you can do this. You can either soak the beans overnight first, or you can not soak them. If you do soak them overnight, you just put the water in the pot, put the beans in. You can put any amount of water that you want when you're soaking them. Then the next day, 12 hours later, when you go to cook them, you're going to strain them and then put in 4 cups of water and the dried beans. And if you soak them, it only takes 5 minutes to cook them in the Instant Pot. If you do not soak them, then it's still significantly faster, but it does take an hour to cook them. And then if you don't soak them, you're going to rinse the beans. You know, always when you use beans, you're going to rinse beans and look and see if there's any stones, you know, whatever. And so when the beans are clean, then you're going to put them in the pot with 4 cups of water. If you want to, you can put some garlic, an onion, bay leaf. I don't do that. I think they taste perfectly fine with just a little bit of salt. So 4 cups of water, 1.5 teaspoons of salt, just regular salt. So if you're using kosher salt, you want to use a little more, because since the crystals are a little larger, there's less salt per volume. So you're going to put in a 1.5 teaspoons of salt and a pound of beans. So then you're going to put the lid on the Instant Pot. This is a little tip I'm going to tell you. I'll try and tell you a few things that I've learned. I'm not an Instant Pot genius, but I have picked up a few things that are helpful. The little things that you use to lift the lid, there's slots in the handles, and that's a place to put the Instant Pot lid, so you know where it is. It's not in the way. It doesn't drip on anything. So it's a handy little thing to know. Another thing that I can tell you is this liner in here. It comes with a liner, and it can start to, if you cook a food that has a strong smelling seasoning, that can be picked up on this rubber gasket. So you can buy replacement gaskets for it. You can buy these replacements. So, for instance, if you're making chili or something with cumin in it or something like that, you can have one, maybe use your green ones for that. And then if you're doing sweet things, you might want to have a different gasket so that you wouldn't transfer the flavors without meaning to. So that's another little tip that I can give you. So you're going to take the lid, and I'm doing this backwards, so I'm probably going to have a hard time figuring that out. Okay, so the lid is on. You click it to the side. This little vent thing on the back, when it's pointed towards the back, it's sealed. When you go to vent it, you're going to push it forward. But of course, when we want to use it to pressure cook, we're going to push it to the back, to the sealed part. So then we're going to come back here, and this is going to be on high pressure. So we're going to do manual, and I'm going to go plus to 60 minutes because those beans were not soaked. And then I don't have to do anything else. It's already on high pressure, 60 minutes, and then it's going to go to on. It's going to start building up steam, and it's going to take about probably 15 minutes to come to full pressure. So it's not going to start counting down until it reaches high pressure. Then it's going to start counting down. So you'll see how much time is left on it. Because these beans have not been soaked, it's going to take an hour. And then I'm going to let that do natural release, which means I do nothing. So when it gets to the 60 minutes, it's going to have an L next to it, and it's going to start counting, and you'll see how long it's been slowly coming to pressure release. And then after 20 minutes, I'm going to push this vent forward to release the remaining steam. And when it sounds like there's no more steam coming out, and I don't see any more steam coming out, then I'm going to twist this lid and lift it off. But while I'm waiting for it to come to temperature, to pressure, I'm going to make sure that this vent is pushed backwards. So that's all there is to it. It's really, you know, you can walk away from it, don't even think about it, and in an hour, well really, by the time it comes to pressure, cooks for an hour, and then 20 minutes later, it's going to take you an hour and 40 minutes approximately to go from dry beans to perfectly cooked chickpeas. Okay, so we're going to come back and I'll show you a couple things that you can do with the chickpeas once they're cooked. So one of the things that you can make with chickpeas is hummus. And you can flavor it any way you want. I'm just going to make a plain hummus to show you. And I'll put a recipe in the program materials if you're interested. I'm not going to measure anything, and I'm not really going to use a recipe because I just don't. So I'm going to take some of these chickpeas, quite a bit of it because I'm going to make a fair amount of hummus. I think you could probably do this okay with a stick blender, but since I'm making a fair amount of it, I'm just going to pour it in there. And I've poured off a little bit of the liquid to reserve to see if I need it. I don't know if I will. So I have quite a bit of the chickpeas in there. I have tahini. Use your favorite brand, whatever that is. And if you've never heard of tahini or you don't have a favorite brand, use whatever you can find on the shelf at Giant. That will be just fine. So I'm going to put, this is about half a cup of tahini in, roughly. Then I'm going to put lemon juice in. Freshly squeezed is better, but if you don't have freshly squeezed, then a jar will be the substitute that you'll use. So you want to squeeze that. And I'm not going to put it all in first. I'm going to start this off and then taste it. And then these make your garbage disposal smell great. So this is good. I'm going to just put some in, not all of it. And garlic. I'm going to put a couple of cloves in. You can give it a rough chop if you want, but you know, it's a food processor. If you're using a food processor, it's going to do a pretty good job. And a little bit of salt. So some people like olive oil in their hummus, some people don't. So the hummus came out great. It's nice and creamy, ready to go. You can add whatever seasonings you want to it. But another thing that you can do with chickpeas, aside from just eating them, because they're really good just by themselves, the chickpeas are much more flavorful when you make them yourself than when you buy them canned. But another thing that I like to do is, if you have an air fryer, and I do, yeah, you can do these in a regular oven if you want to too, is to take the chickpeas, put a little bit of olive oil, doesn't take much. When you're using an air fryer, like a half a teaspoon of olive oil is plenty for this. So I'm going to take the chickpeas with that little bit of olive oil in it, and I'm going to, you could do this in a Ziploc bag if you wanted to save a little bit of mess, but I'm probably going to wind up putting hummus in here, so that's fine. So I'm going to shake that up, and then I'm going to do this with a little bit of salt and some curry. So I'm going to put a little salt in there, and this is Madras curry powder, which I really like, or a fair amount in, you know, a teaspoon or whatever, however much you kind of like. So I'm going to shake that up, and then I'm going to just stick them in my air fryer. And I'm going to put these in at, my air fryer tends to run a little hot, so I'm going to put mine in for 5 minutes at 375.